Our water is boiling, and it's time to put our herb sea bass in the steamer. Now, if you don't have a big steamer like this one, you can use a smaller one, or a simple double boiler, or even a large bowl over a pot of boiling water. The important thing is to be able to cover it. We keep the water boiling, and while our fish steams for about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on its size, we'll get started on our herb plum sauce. This is our local fresh celery. Yours may be a little different, but any kind of celery is fine. These, of course, are spring onions. This is our fresh ginger root. And here we have a nice fresh red chili, always great for adding color to any dish. For these, you may have to visit your local Asian grocery. They're black mushrooms. You buy them dried, and then you soak them in water until they're soft for about a half an hour. A small piece of pork fat or pork belly will provide a nice flavor. If you can't get one from the local butcher, or you don't eat pork, you can just leave it out. These are salted pickled plums, and they'll come in a jar like this. We'll slice up our garlic cloves and about a quarter cup of mushrooms. Garlic in Western countries tends to grow larger and taste a bit stronger than that found in Thailand. So if you live in the West, and one of our recipes calls for 3 cloves of garlic, for example, you might reduce it to 2. Next, we slice up about a quarter cup of the pork fat. Salty pickled plums are sometimes called Japanese apricots. We'll need to remove the meat from around the pits and break it up into little pieces. Next, we chop about a quarter cup each of our celery and spring onions. If you're wondering why Room is slicing at an angle, know that Thai cooks are aware at every step of their preparation of the effect of their techniques on the presentation of the final dish. We use our chili, as we often do, for a splash of color. We don't need the seeds, so we remove those before slicing it into thin strips. And our ginger root, which we'll cut into nice thin slices and then into thin strips. About a quarter cup is what we're after. Though the pieces of herbs we use to stuff the fish are too large for most people to eat, there are many who eat not only cooked but sometimes raw herbs such as these, not only for their flavor, but for the healthful properties we mentioned earlier. A bowl of the famous tom yum soup, for example, chock full of lemongrass, galangal, and coriander, is considered to provide relief to the effects of the common cold. Now we combine our seasonings. 2 teaspoons of oyster sauce, teaspoon of soy sauce, a teaspoon of fish sauce, a tablespoon of cooking sherry, about a half teaspoon of white ground pepper, and a teaspoon of lime juice for a little tanginess. It's been about 15 minutes and it's time to remove our fish from the steamer. Steaming a fish larger than this one, or cooking more than one fish at a time, may take longer. Now, as I said earlier, we don't eat the herbs, so now's the time to remove them. If there's a way to prepare fish more succulent than this, we haven't seen it yet. If you don't have a warmer like this one, just use a nice big platter. Now to finish up our plum sauce, let's go to the stove. We've got a medium flame going. Our wok is hot. To make our sauce, we start by frying up our pork fat until it starts to melt. We add a little bit of chicken stock to keep it frying nicely. Now we add our ginger, garlic, and black mushrooms. Now we pour in a cup of chicken stock. And our seasoning sauces, into which we put our salted pickled plums, so they go in now too. We cook that very briefly. Now we can add our spring onions and chilies and our chopped celery. To thicken the liquid a little bit, we use a little cornstarch that we've dissolved in water. As beautiful as this dish is, we're still going to garnish it with deep-fried dried garlic, coriander leaves, and for a little extra color, red chili rings.